Hey guys, it's Rebecca Oberstadt. So what I plan on doing today is going through and swatching out the Blue Blood palette from Jeffree Star and going through any and all palettes that I have with blue in it to see if any of the shades that I currently have are anywhere near similar to the Jeffree Star palette. Now, I know some of these palettes only have like one or two blue shades in them, so I will definitely be checking to see if any of them are even close to similar, because I don't have a whole lot of blue eyeshadow and I really do enjoy it. So I'm going to swatch the Blue Blood palette on the very top of my arm here, and then I will swatch the other ones on the other half of my arm, and I will be cleaning my hands off with the Makeup Off or the Always Off makeup cleansing cloth in between swatches, so my fingers are not contaminated. So hopefully you guys enjoy. So first we're going to start off with swatching the Jeffree Star Blue Blood palette. This is Canon, Mint Tea, Crystal Flesh, and I'm Cold. And Crystal Flesh does not really show up on me all that well. And then Untouchable, oh look, the I'm Cold shade I did have to build up, but Untouchable and Priceless are very similar to my skin as well, so they're very fair on me. And then I put Power, Blue Blood, and Deceased on there, and Deceased I have a very difficult time working with. Then I'm going into Ice Tray, Blue Monday, and Flourishing. And I ended up building up Blue Monday again and Flourishing as well. Blue Monday is kind of more like a purple cast blue. Then I'm going into Wealthy, Celebrity Skin, and Entitled. Wealthy is also very similar to my skin tone. It has a little bit more peach in it than my natural skin tone. And I did build that up a little bit as well. And I love Entitled. I also really love Ocean Ice, but it stains severely. So Ocean Ice, Cremated, and Undertaker are the next three shades. So that is the actual Jeffree Star Blue Blood palette swatched out on my arm. And I did clean up underneath of it so that I had plenty of room to swatch other shadows underneath as well. Moving on, I'm actually taking the original Zodiac palette and I grabbed the Aries shimmer shade and the Aquarius matte shade, as well as the Sagittarius shade. Now the Aries shade is kind of similar to Entitled, and the Aquarius matte shade is similar to Celebrity Skin. Then I went into the Virgo matte shade, the very center shade of the palette, which is technically a highlight, and then I grabbed the Taurus shade. I thought that the Virgo matte shade would be very similar to Untouchable. Cullinan and the center shade are very similar, and then the Taurus shimmer shade I figured would be similar to Crystal Flesh. I'm now grabbing Virgo and Leo shimmer shades, as well as Pisces, and again they're both very similar, or all three of them are very similar to the Crystal Flesh shade. So moving on to the Zodiac Love Signs palette, I then grabbed the Capricorn shimmer and matte and the Aquarius shimmer and matte. The Capricorn shimmer is lighter than Entitled. The matte shade, if you mix I'm Cold with Flourishing, you could basically get that color. And then the Aquarius shade I figured would be kind of like a similar shade to Undertaker, but it wasn't as close as I thought it was. And of course the Aquarius matte shade was darker than Flourishing. I then go in and I grab the Scorpio shade, the shimmer and the matte. The matte is very similar to Wealthy. And the Libra shimmer. The Libra shimmer is again similar to Crystal Flesh. And the Libra matte was darker than Celebrity Skin. Now moving on, this is actually a little trio that I have from LA Colors. I picked this up at the Dollar Tree when I did the Dollar Tree Makeup Challenge. It is in the color Water Lily, and the two blue shades in there, they're actually kind of similar. Now granted, they're shimmery shades, so the light shade is very similar to I'm Cold, and the darker shade is similar to Entitled as well. Now I went ahead and switched arms and moved over. This is the CoverGirl True Naked Days palette, and I pulled several shadows from here. I pulled the navy blue shade from the middle and the matte shade next to it. The navy blue shade is very similar to Ocean Ice, but definitely not as sparkly, and the matte shade, I guess if you mix like Blue Blood and Flourishing or Deceased and Flourishing, you could get something similar. And now with the Milani palette, this is actually Bold Obsessions, and I pulled the shades Sweet as Honey and Smoke Signals. Now Smoke Signals, when I try and use it, it does come off quite blue on the skin. And then I grabbed the Can't Pink Straight. Can't Pink Straight is very similar to Wealthy. The Sweet as Honey shade is very similar to Celebrity Skin, and then the Smoke Signals is very similar to the cremated shade, except for it's a satin. And then you have some of the lighter shades again they're very, very similar to some of the shades in the Jeffree Star palette. As of right now, I haven't found anything that is exact. Now moving into the BH Cosmetics Aquarius palette, there's quite a few blues in here. The very top shade, I call number 1, is similar to Ice Tray. It's just a little bit darker. The third shade, which is a matte shade, if you were to take like Blue Blood and Power and mix them, you could get something very similar to that, because it's kind of like a grayish cornflower blue. Then that shade that I just went into and the lighter blue is very similar to Ice Tray, or if you like mix Ice Tray and Cullinan, then you would get the next to the last shade that I put on. And of course the center shade does have a blue sheen to it, so it's similar to Cullinan, but again it has more of a bluish white cast than just a straight white cast like Cullinan has. And there I'm trying to show you comparisons from one arm to the other as to some of the other shades. And I tried doing this, it was a little difficult trying to like put my arms together to try and like match up shades. But I was just trying to find in the collection that I have what shades would match. Now going into the Pisces palette from BH Cosmetics, I pulled that very aqua colored bottom shade. It is similar to Entitled. And then the matte green shade is kind of like a greener version of Cremated. That's Entitled, and then that's very similar to it, and then that one is similar to Cremated as well, but it's just got a little bit more greenish blue hue to it. And again, me trying to show you side by sides doesn't work too well when you're using your arms like this. Now this is actually a Makeup Revolution palette that is 100% matte. I ended up pulling the shade Shell out of here, and I pulled Pearl and Matte, and then the very last one is Stone. And I was trying to find shades that were similar to Wealthy, Celebrity Skin, Untouchable, and Priceless, because these are all 100% matte shades. And I think the darker of them, actually, in this palette, I use Warm and Rosewood the most. I think Rosewood is probably the closest to Celebrity Skin, and then you've got Pearl and Matte, which are similar to Wealthy as well. Now this is the BH Cosmetics Take Me Back to Brazil palette. There are quite a few like blues and purples in this palette, so I swatched several of those as well as the pink, but the pink ended up being more of a like shimmer shade. So as you can see, there's no names on this palette, they're just done by row. So you have the very first row with the pink shade, which is similar to Untouchable, and then the 3 like aqua colors that I pulled that are close to Flourishing and Entitled. and then getting into some of the darker shades that are more like the purpley blue shades, then you have comparable shades to Deceased and Blue Monday, and things that are similar to Ocean Ice but nowhere near as like glittery as Ocean Ice. But the undertones of quite a few of the blue shades look very similar to Ocean Ice when you just try and brush off the glitter from Ocean Ice. So I did try and compare quite a few of the darker blue shades to that palette as well. Now I do have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. Now in here you have the shades Silk Cream, MEFO, Butter, and Pooter. And some of them were kind of close to celebrity skin, but nothing was, you know, basically spot on. You also have the shades in Light and Beam, which are the very first two shades, but they're more of a cream base, so they're not as close to Cullinan. Then you have Twerk, which I was surprised at how close it was in shade match to Blue Monday and Ocean Ice, but definitely not as glittery as Ocean Ice. Then you have Pool Party and Jada, or Jada. Pool Party is very close to Entitled, but I think Entitled has more green to it. And then Jada is just the matte version of it, which is very similar to Flourishing. So if you have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, you've got about, I don't know, 4 shades out of here that could be somewhat similar to the Jeffree Star Blue Blood palette. I did find a lot of like similar shades, but nothing that was like spot on. I think the Pisces palette from BH Cosmetics actually had the closest shade match to anything in this palette for the blue shades. Now going into the James Charles palette, I took Ring Light, and I ran out of arm room. So there's Ring Light, and then you've got Canvas, Pinch Me, and then Hello. Ring Light, I guess, could be similar to Cullinan, but it's more beige. Then you have Canvas, which is similar to Priceless. Punch Me, which is similar to Celebrity Skin. Hello, which is a shimmery version of I'm Cold. Then you have Playground, which is kind of like a more aqua version of Blue Monday or a lighter version of Flourishing. Then you have Brother, which is similar to Blue Monday, but it's not quite as purple, and it's definitely nowhere near as pigmented. Then you have Cola and Acapella. Acapella is like a darker version of Ice Tray, but not quite as hard to work with as Deceased, which I had a hard time working with Deceased. I even pulled Cape Cod, but I figured it would be close to Entitled, but it wasn't. There's similar shades in the James Charles palette, but Jeffree's palette is so much easier to work with. Now with the single shadows, a few of these are actually Morphe shadows. Some of them are from my line of cosmetics. When I was making makeup products and stuff, I am no longer working with my lab for that. But out of the Morphe shadows, I have the shade Aloha, which is very similar to Flourishing. And then another one that is very similar to Flourishing as well is Bam. And then I think the other blue one that I have is See Through My Eyes, which is very similar as well to Deceased. And then all the rest of them are basically from my brand. They're either the Super Silky Shadows or the Bold Effect Shadows, or some of my pressed pigments as well. But none of them are like perfect matches. And I ended up having a swatch on my other hand as well. But these are literally all of the shades that I pulled from like single shadows, whether they're similar or close. I have quite a few shades that are very similar in shade to the Jeffree Star palette. None of them have the kind of pigmentation that is exactly the same. This was just me trying to figure out of all of the blue shades that I have across all of my palettes, did anything come close to being dupeable for the Jeffree Star palette? Yes, I have quite a few that are very similar, I could probably get similar looks for the eye, but for the most part, no. Everything that is in the Jeffree Star palette is unique to my collection, and I really appreciate that. And I like working with the palette. I have recorded, I think, 6 looks with this palette so far. The last look that I recorded I absolutely hated, but I'm going to be doing a random palette look for this as well, and I had some requests to do some neutral palette looks as well. I've done one so far. I will try and do a few more because people want to use this for like more work kind of looks, so I figured I would do a couple of those and then throw in a surprise at the end. So hopefully you like this, you know, of me going through all of my shadows that would be somewhat similar to Jeffree's palette, and maybe you are encouraged to look through your palettes to see what you might have that might be similar to the Blue Blood palette if you don't already have it, and see whether or not you actually want to take the time to when it restocks, sit on his website and wait for that 11 o'clock PST to hit to refresh your page so you can pop it in your cart and buy it. I do like the palette. I do have a few of the shadows that are very difficult to work with. I have severe fallout with Ocean Ice. Deceased is very hard, like the pan is pressed excruciatingly hard. It's very difficult to work with. But overall, I really do enjoy the palette. It's my very first high-end palette that I've ever bought, and I do really like it. It's also my only vegan palette. So hopefully you guys enjoy. I will see you in another video very soon. Have a great day or night wherever you are. Bye!